Reaper Virus from Blade 2 Explained. Blade is a special franchise for Marvel because it paved the way for all the glory that was about to follow. After the success of the first Blade movie in 1998, this superhero horror film spawned into an exciting and successful franchise. Blade 2, directed by Guillermo del Toro, was enriched by an engaging screenplay by David S. Goyer, and the cast, led by Wesley Snipes, made for a combined hit recipe. One of the most interesting things about the narrative was the concept of the Reaper virus. This virus could correct some of the flaws in the vampire genetic code, and thus some enhanced vampires known as Reapers came into existence. The Reaper virus was created in order to make vampires stronger and more lethal, and the Reaper is like an updated version that comes without some of the vulnerabilities that vampires have to deal with. However, their super strength and agility soon proved to be a problem for vampires as well. Due to their unnatural appetite, they had a constant urge to consume blood, and even the vampires could be prey for the Reapers. Thus, an uneasy alliance was brokered between the vampires and Blade, and they had to deal with the threat of the Reaper virus before it was too late.
Let me get this right. You want me to hunt them? For you?
This video brings you the nitty-gritty of the Reaper virus, and we explore everything from its origin to its strengths and weaknesses. Stay tuned, because this is the crown for the vampire fans. And few things are as interesting in the vampire genre as Blade up against a seemingly indestructible, mutated form of vampires.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
What is Reaper virus? The Blade franchise has an interesting take on vampirism. It describes vampirism as some kind of progressive virus which is spread through the saliva of the vampires. It then replicates in the human host, whose cells are then changed on a molecular level to turn them into something entirely different. However, the thing with viruses is that they can evolve, naturally or through experiments. It all started when the overlord of the vampire nation, Eli Damaskinos, decided to fix the flaws in a vampire's genetic code. The vampires were vulnerable to sunlight, silver, and garlic, and Damaskinos wanted to create a new race that could withstand these weaknesses. Hereditary markers simulated the biological build of a daywalker like Blade, and Damaskinos wanted to do the same with vampires. This would be the first step towards his goal of absolute vampire supremacy in the world. He tested this experiment on his own son, Jared NOMAK, who then became the patient zero. The experiment was only partially successful.
NOMAK was the first. Failure.
NOMAK did transform into a super vampire, but he was still vulnerable to sunlight. The enzyme that brought about the changes in NOMAK had transmutative effects, and it was like a parasitic virus that could be carried from one vampire to another. In the process, they would be genetically altered and new parasitic organisms would be produced. This was the deadly Reaper strain that soon started to show its adverse effects. Reaper physiology, how they hunt their prey. Except their super speed and agility, the Reapers did not have any distinct superpowers. What made them so powerful was their urge to feed and their differences from the normal vampires. The Reapers have a bifurcated lower jaw, and it did have the traditional mandible bone. The jaw is split and it has two fangs containing paralytic neurotoxin at the ends. This could be effective in immobilizing their prey, although there have been instances where individuals managed to fight off the paralytic effects even after getting bitten. In order to drink the blood of their victims, they have a muscular, proboscis-like tongue that ends in barbed tendrils. These barbs attach the tongue securely to the victim and also inject the deadly virus. They are all well protected against any injury to their heart because their ribcage is almost structured like a shield of solid bone with a very slight gap. They have pale, albino skin and no hair. The Reapers also have a gill-like system on their backs, which is used to secrete a pheromone that draws other Reapers to the scent of blood. Is NOMAK born as a Reaper, or did he receive some sort of gene therapy as a normal vampire? Jared NOMAK was the son of the vampire overlord Eli Damaskinos, and he was experimented upon rigorously in order to create an invincible vampire. He was not born with the Reaper strain, and it was only introduced in him artificially. Once the Reaper strain was developed, NOMAK was injected with it, and he soon transformed into a monstrous form. The virus changed his physiology, and his thinking process was also affected in the process. His bloodlust increased manifold, and his insatiable hunger did not discriminate between humans and vampires. NOMAK would prey on both, and he soon became a threat to the vampires as well. Immediately after the experiment was conducted on NOMAK, Damaskinos found out that it had failed its purpose. He wanted to eliminate his son, but NOMAK managed to escape. He then went on a killing spree across the vampire nation, and humans and vampires alike fell before his deadly attacks. They were all transformed into Reapers, and the Reaper strain started to spread at an alarming rate. NOMAK was like the alpha male in the pack of Reapers, and he had more self-control and brains than the others. He also had better control of his thirst for blood, and he had the ability to command the other Reapers to do his bidding. He resented his father, and the whole vampire nation was supposed to pay the price of his wrath. The Unthinkable Alliance. Dire situations call for extreme measures. When Damaskinos realized that his own son had gone rogue and now threatened the entire vampire clan, he approached Blade, the vampire hunter. He bridged the gap between him and his arch nemesis and wanted Blade to help the Blood Pack and take down NOMAK. The Blood Pack was a team of vampire warriors who were formed to destroy Blade. Now, their priorities had changed and they would work alongside Blade to fight against NOMAK and the Reapers.
From now on, we work as a unit. You've been taking orders from me.
NOMAK was also aware of the threat that Blade posed, which once again points to his active intelligence. He displayed animalistic behavior, but he still had the mind to strategize. He approached Blade and offered an alliance, where they would slay vampires together. But Blade turned down his offer, and they engaged in a fierce battle. This was when Blade discovered that the Reapers were quite different from the regular vampires, and a lot more difficult to defeat. The Reaper abilities and weaknesses. The whole purpose behind the creation of the Reaper strain was to develop a race of vampires who would be invincible. While the experiment was not completely successful, it did accomplish some changes in the subject. For instance, NOMAK was shown to be a lot more powerful than any human or other vampire. Only Blade proved to be a match for his strength, and he too had to toil hard to get the better of NOMAK. Since he was the first Reaper, he had the edge over the ones to follow. His DNA was the purest of the Reaper strain, and this probably was the secret behind his greater powers. His bloodlust was under his control to an extent, and he also had the ability to make the other Reapers fight for him. He was the only Reaper who could speak, and he could stick to solid surfaces like a spider. In general, the Reapers have the same ability as they did before being transformed. However, the transformation gives them an added edge because of their primal instinct to feed. This extreme urge makes them desperate, and they also show signs of great agility and strength. Their regenerative powers were almost magical, and they seemed to survive the worst of injuries. After Priest gets infected by the Reaper strain, his head is chopped off to end his misery. The body is exposed to sunlight and burns out, but the head stays alive for quite some time. This is just one instance that shows the extreme durability of the Reapers. It has been suggested that the Reapers probably have an enhanced sense of smell. Their agility is also considerably greater than vampires or humans because they have been shown to climb walls and ceilings effortlessly before launching a surprise attack. The Reapers can withstand silver and garlic, but they still don't stand a chance against ultraviolet radiation. Natural UV radiation from the sun could burn their bodies, and even artificial sources like UV lamps and other such devices could inflict fatal damage. The Reapers, apart from NOMAK, however, were not exactly great thinkers. They had a basic primal instinct to hunt for prey, and they could plan nothing more than their next meal. They were helpless when it came to fighting the urge to feed, and in case no prey was readily available, they could also turn cannibalistic and attack each other. If they did not find a source of food in time, they would start growing weaker by the hour. Only 12 hours without food could affect them adversely, and it has been shown that even if their brains are removed, their bodies still try to feed. The end of the Reaper strain. It is indicated that there were somewhere around 50 to 100 Reapers who relentlessly attacked humans and vampires. When Blade attacked him for the first time, NOMAK showed great resilience and strength. He survived even after being shot by a silver bullet, and repeatedly injected him with EDTA blood thinner also did not cause much damage. However, his Reaper pack was not as invincible, and Blade managed to slay most of them with the help of the Blood Pack. We have already spoken about how Jared NOMAK wanted revenge from his father, the vampire overlord Damaskinos. Even after losing most of his Reaper pack, he single-handedly attacked Damaskinos' sanctum. His father's beefed-up security was no match for his insane strength, and most of them were slaughtered while trying to protect their leader. NOMAK ripped apart Damaskinos' throat and proceeded to bite his sister, Nisa, in order to turn her into a Reaper. Blade soon caught up to him, and they fought in a fierce and intense final battle to the death. Blade finally managed to plunge his sword through the slight gap in NOMAK's protective ribcage straight into his head. As he lay dying, his body turned into ash, and this is presumably the end of the Reaper strain. There could be a few other Reaper survivors left, but it is unlikely that they would survive much longer without NOMAK to guide them. our final words. If you haven't checked out the Blade franchise already, it's high time that you did. Blade 2, in particular, will leave you stunned, and the antics of the Reapers will be a treat for all the vampire lovers out there. Besides, you get to enjoy some impactful performances from the likes of Wesley Snipes, Ron Perlman, Luke Goss, etc. So, what's not to like? You will get a nice combination of action and horror, and Blade fighting alongside his old enemies to bring down a greater threat is not something you will want to miss out on.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.